Hi my lovely dears, welcome to this new Italian tutorial. This tutorial will be about how to use the passato prossimo and how to use the imperfetto, which are two past tenses about which I have talked in the two previous tutorials, and I will link them in the description below. Actually, recently I also wrote a blog post about how to use the tenses in Italian, and yeah, I will also link it in the description below because it can be useful when you're learning Italian. Now, I decided to do this tutorial about how to use imperfetto and how to use passato prossimo because this creates some problems to people that are learning Italian. I also see that with my students. So this is actually one of the topics that most often we have to deal with, also with more advanced students, and it creates always some problems. So that's why I decided to talk about it in this tutorial. It's not something difficult, just that it's something you have to get used to, because tenses in Italian, the way you use the tenses in Italian works in a different way than the way you use it in other languages. Well, actually, every language uses tenses in a different way, more or less different way, and so you have just to enter in the Italian way of thinking. And actually, I think this is also one of the nicest things when you learn a language. You also enter in another mentality, in another way of thinking. But anyway, going to our topic, how do you use the imperfetto and how do you use the passato prossimo? Now, in general, let's say the passato prossimo is something that happened. So it's used for something that happened in the past and is finished, is complete. So it's an action that is considered complete. So if you imagine a timeline, because this helps when you learn Italian, this helps in understanding how to use the tenses in Italian. So if you imagine a timeline, so that goes from the past to the future, and so you imagine a point also for the present in the middle of this line. Now, passato prossimo is, let's say, a dot on this line, another dot that is put slightly before the present. So you go towards the past end of your timeline. So it's something that happened in a recent past and is complete, is finished. Yeah, actually passato prossimo should be used for something happened in the recent past, but nowadays in spoken language is used also for something that happened in a more remote past, because we have also a tense for that. It is called passato remoto, so literally remote past, but nowadays in spoken language it's not used so much. It's used mostly in southern dialects. So nowadays in spoken language we use passato prossimo also for something that is complete, is finished, also in a remote past, not only in a recent past. But anyway, so passato prossimo is, in few words, a dot on this timeline for something that happened in the past, is complete, is finished. Imperfetto is used when the action is not considered complete or finished. So when this aspect of the action and of the verb is not emphasized, is not considered. So again, on your timeline, going from the past to the future, imperfect is also put before the present, going towards the past end of your line, so like you do with the passato prossimo. But let's say that more than a dot, the imperfetto is more like of a segment. So it's something that maybe lasts longer. We don't know, but the important thing is that it's not an action that is considered complete or finished. So this is not the main thing considered when you use the imperfetto. So this as an introduction. Now, more in detail. So the passato prossimo, I said, is used for something that happened and finished. So passato prossimo actually doesn't create so many problems. What creates problems is the imperfetto. And when do you use it in detail? I said it's used for something that is not considered finished or complete. So more in detail is used when you describe something. So for example, la casa dove ho passato le vacanze estive era bella. To make a simple sentence, that means the house where I spent my summer holidays was beautiful, was nice. So as you see, I use ho passato, so that is in passato prossimo, and it's because I had my holidays finished, complete. Era bella, I use it because I'm making a description, so I'm describing the house. Another example of using the imperfetto as a description. Il risotto che ho preparato ieri era delizioso, for example. So the risotto that I prepared yesterday was delicious. So again, you see, I use the passato prossimo for ho preparato because I prepared it. It's done. It's complete. Era buonissimo, I use it because I'm describing. So I'm not saying something that happened. I'm not talking about something that happened and finished. I'm describing. So I know also something else that is important. You may have seen also when I was translating in English the Italian sentences that I said. Don't just automatically translate from the English or from your language into Italian. So don't say, for example, the present perfect is always passato prossimo, and the past simple is always imperfetto or is always passato prossimo. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't, because as I say, tenses work in a different way in every language. So more or less every language has is a different way of using them, as I said. So you can't automatically translate. You have to think directly in the language you want to talk in. And actually this should always be your aim. It's not easy, but that's the aim when you learn a new language. So going on with the uses of the imperfetto. So we have seen that in imperfetto you use it to describe something. Now another use is also to talk about habits. So for something that was usual in the past. So for example, I say la mia amica quando studiava all'università usciva spesso la sera. So my friend, when she was studying at university, was going out often in the evening. So here I even use twice the imperfetto because so studiava, so she was studying, e usciva spesso, usciva, so she was going out often. These are things that were a habit, so they were recurring often, so they were usual. And they actually were also happening more or less at the same time in the past. But it's something we will see in detail later. Another example. L'anno scorso Mangiavo spesso al ristorante cinese, for example. So last year I was eating often at the Chinese restaurant. So I use mangiavo because it was a habit that I had last year. Maybe I don't have it anymore this year. Maybe something changed. Who cares? Important is that it was an habit that I had last year. So the period I'm talking about. Now, let's go to another use. It's actually something similar to this. Another use of the imperfetto is when you talk about actions that were recurring in the past. So they were happening often. So for esempio, 2 anni fa andavo in palestra 3 volte alla settimana. So 2 years ago I was going to the gym 3 times a week. So then something changed. I don't know, maybe I'm going more often, I'm going less often, but for the period I'm talking about, so 2 years ago, I was doing this often. So I say andavo, so I use the imperfetto. Actually, something is quite similar to the habits. Now, another use of the imperfetto that I also mentioned earlier is when you talk about 2 actions that happen at the same time. Also in that case you use the imperfetto. So, for example, ieri mentre pranzavo guardavo la televisione. So yesterday, while I was having lunch, I was watching TV. So I'm doing that at the same time. I'm having lunch and I'm watching TV at the same time. Or another example. Ieri, mentre spazzavo, mia madre spolverava. So yesterday, while I was hoovering, my mother was dusting off. So they are happening at the same time. So I use imperfetto. There is though something important here. When you talk about 2 actions at the same time, you can use the imperfetto. But you can also use the passato prossimo. So one verb goes in the imperfetto. The other verb goes in the passato prossimo. What is the difference? The difference is that when you use the imperfetto for both of them, it means that they have the same length. So again, think about your timeline. On your timeline, if you use the imperfetto, you have 2 segments happening at the same time before the present. So going towards the past end of your timeline. But if you use the passato prossimo, it can mean 2 things. First, that the action, the verb that is in passato prossimo, lasted shorter. So, for example, earlier I said, mentre pranzavo guardavo la televisione. So, this means they had the same length. So, all the time that I was having lunch, I was watching TV. But, if I say, mentre pranzavo ho guardato la televisione. So guardavo becomes ho guardato. So imperfetto becomes passato prossimo. What does it mean? That I didn't watch TV the whole time I was having lunch. I just watched it for a part. So for a little part. Maybe I watched at the beginning that I was having lunch. Maybe I watched it more towards the end of my lunch. Important is that it lasted shorter. So this is one case. The other meaning is that the action that I was doing is interrupted. What I mean is that if I was doing something and then something else happened and so what I was doing got interrupted, what I had to use is imperfetto for what I was doing. And passato prossimo for what happened, and so interrupted the thing that I was doing. So, for example, I can say, mentre leggevo il giornale, mi ha telefonato mio padre. So, while I was reading the newspaper, my father called me on the phone. So, what I was doing, reading the newspaper, got interrupted by the call of my father. So, what I was doing, so reading the newspaper goes in imperfetto, leggevo, and what happened that interrupted my reading the newspaper, so the call of my father goes in passato prossimo. So, ha telefonato. Another example. Mentre salivo le scale, ho incontrato la mia vicina di casa. So, while I was going up the stairs, I met my neighbor, female, as you can see also, vicina di casa. So, that's it for the uses of the imperfetto the passato prossimo. As you see, passato prossimo has just the meaning of something that is finished, stop, happened at a certain point in the past and stop. It's done. It's complete. While imperfetto has more uses, so the uses that we have seen. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please, if you liked it, give it a thumb up. And please subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. As always, feel free to ask any topic or to post any comment or any question that you have. Thanks for watching and see you next tutorial. Ciao ciao!